All right, everyone. What we're going to do here today is make some nested and compound if statements. Now, we've talked about just your regular if statements. Now we're going to talk about a little bit more complex ways to use some if statements. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a new project. Console app. Yeah, I'll just name it, whatever the day's date is. And then I'll just call it Nested Ifs. And then we wait just a moment. Now, as of right now, we have created just your basic ifs before. Close that. Forgot to turn on my magnifier. There we go. Now, I'm going to, of course, get everything situated, get rid of all my little extra thingies here. There we go. Zoom in. Let me set that up. And, well, I don't need the whole thing, actually, so let's just go ahead and go there. Okay, so we talked about just your regular if statements so far. And that is just simply done with, I have some sort of variable, int number 1 equals 10, if number 1 equals 10, right? If number 1 equals 10, then I, print out it's 10, right? So pretty straightforward. And I make little comments at the end of my braces, and I would encourage you to do that as well. Because it only gets more complicated as you go through programming. And I find just commenting the end of a brace will tell you exactly where that's supposed to end, and it's a good way to figure out if you have a missing brace somewhere and where it is. So I'm going to run it. Let's give it a check. It should, of course, print off it's 10, which it does. Okay, perfect. And then, of course, we've got the else if number 1 equals, let's say, 11, then I would, see out it's 11, right? Now, else if, the way this works is, and you could bump it up like that if you prefer. That's usually how I kind of do it. It doesn't really matter whether it's that or that. As far as the code is concerned, it doesn't care. So we've got if number 1 equals 10, right? And then we print off a little message. And it'll check this first. If that fails, if this is false, and I could just write false in here, but if that's false, it would go to the next thing in this list, the next else if. And then it would check this one. Is number 1 11? And then if it is, it'll run this. And I'll keep doing this until I go down my entire list and get to the end. Now, if I do this, I'm asking two separate questions here. Is number 1 10? Is number 1 11? So let's say this is true, and then I change it to 11 or something. Well, now this is true. It could actually run both ifs. But if I keep it else if, only one of these will run. So the difference between, this is one of the common errors people do initially. They'll just set up like 5 just regular if statements. But when you set up an if, every question is checked and every question can run. So if you only want one choice, then you need an if, else if, and probably an else after that. The else is essentially just your catch-all. So it's something else. It will go to the else if all else fails. So if I have 50 conditions here, it'll check each one of those. And if all of them fail, that's when it goes to this else. If I don't have the else, every one of these can fail and then nothing happens. This is another common error. People will put in if, else if, and then they'll forget the else part. And everything fails and nothing displays on the screen, and they get a little confused as to why is nothing happening. So those are just some more common issues there. Now, this is your basic if statement. Now, a nested if is an if inside of an if. So if I have another variable up here, 2 equals 20, let's say. Inside this if, I have if number 1's 10, and maybe I want to, if that's true, I want to do something else. So inside here, I'll tab it over, if number 2 equals 20. Then you'll see it's tabbed over here. You'll see the little lines that kind of show you what box this is kind of in. This right here is inside this if currently. If. So I can see out. Let's put in a little text here. It's 10 and 20. Like that or something like that. And I could have another else here if I wanted to. And in this case, I'll just see out. It's 10 and something else. So in this case, it's set to 10 and 20 right now. So if I run this code, it's going to come in here. It's going to find this first if is true. It's going to come in here and check the second question, which is inside this, because from this brace to this brace, that's what's running right now, because the first one's true. If this is true, it will print this, and then it'll leave this. It'll leave all of this and just come to the bottom. If this is false, it will print this line. So to make it here, it has to be 10 and something that's not 20. Now to make it here, obviously it has to be 11. I'm just going to test to make sure that it prints out what it's supposed to print off. Let's see here if I can get my display working right. It's 10 and 20. You see right there. All right, so with this, I have an if inside of the first if. Now, what if this first one here, is set to something else? Well, then this first if here fails, and it's not going to look at anything in here. It doesn't matter if the second one's 20 or not. It's not going to check it because this first door failed. Each one of these are a door that you open and you go to the next room. In this case, that's the first door. If that's opened, if it's true, I go here. There's another door. If this is correct, I open that and I go in here. And then I run that, and that's the end of the program at this point. If I can't open this door, I'll check the next door, which is what you see here. Now, I could, of course, copy and paste all this here, and just, this is where copy and paste can be really useful in a program, or can really just break everything if you're not careful. There we go. So in this case, if I just pasted it in the wrong place, for example, I could end up breaking this whole program. Or if I copy and paste and I forget, like, to put a brace here or something like that, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to put this here, and now all of a sudden I've got red lines everywhere and things are broken. If that happens, just undo whatever it is you did, and then try to make sure you do it again. Copy and paste can save yourself a ton of time, or it can cause yourself some massive headaches, depending on how good you are at it. So in this case, let's see. If the first one's 11, it'll come here. If the second one's 20, it comes here. And then it's 11 or 20. Essentially, it's the same thing we've got here from before, except I change that. The first one fails. That means it would go here. So I run that. I should get, it's 11 and 20, right? So there we go. Now if I change that first number to anything else, 31 or something, well, that fails, so it's not going to check anything there. That fails because it's not 11. The only place it can go at this point is this else. Like that. So this is your typical nested if. Now, whenever you're building any kind of program, it almost will always have, ifs in it, obviously, but probably even nested ifs. And I can nest as many times as I need or as I want. Depends on what we're trying to do. You're probably going to have nested statements. This is why I tell people to comment their braces, because that's a very common way to break your program. You're missing a brace. Sometimes it'll tell you specifically that, hey, you're missing a brace. Other times, it won't. And with whatever IDE you're using, whether it's Eclipse, whether it's Visual Studios like this one, everyone has kind of their own output for the errors. So you kind of have to get used to what those errors mean. By missing a quotation mark or something somewhere, missing closing quote, it tells me pretty specifically what's missing there. By missing a semicolon, it generally might even tell me that I'm missing a semicolon. It depends on the IDE itself. You see it, there we go, expected semicolon. And others are a little bit, less understood. You might just get a weird error or something, or it's not sure what you did or something. Right there. And for those, you just have to get used to seeing what they are and what they mean, and then fix them. That's why I always tell people, the more you screw up in a program, honestly, the better, because you'll get to see what those errors are and what they mean, and that'll just make you better overall programming-wise. Because you'll know how to fix those things. You won't sit there staring at the screen for hours trying to figure out what's wrong with this. That's one of the benefits to kind of being a teacher and teaching this particular topic. I've seen thousands of programs, thousands upon thousands of errors, and it's much, much easier to see that when you've seen it that many times. If somebody shows me a program and they're like, hey, it's not working, I can glance at it and be like, hey, there's your problem, you're missing this thing, you're missing that thing, within usually seconds. That's just because I've seen so many errors. So the more errors you see, the better. Hopefully you don't commit too many errors when you're writing these programs, but the more the better. Well, anyway, this is your basic nested ifs program. The next topic is going to be compound if. So we're just going to take this program and I'm going to show you how it would look if we did compound ifs. So check that in the next video.